Good afternoon and welcome to this week's video briefing from Oxford Analytica. My name is Michael Taylor. I am analyst for Europe, and I have with me Yulia Rusanova, who's Deputy Head of Analysis and also analyst for Russia and the CIS. And what we're looking at this week is Ukraine, which has been in the headlines for several weeks now. And Yulia, can you tell us what the latest developments are in Ukraine?
Well, the crisis, which began about 3 months ago now, starting with pro-EU protests and escalating into acute violence at the end of last week, has culminated in an overthrow of government, the ousting of president, and the opposition factions now taking over the central control. The latest developments, one of the latest developments, is the announcement of the new government, which is comprised largely of members of the former opposition parties, and includes, expectedly enough, Arseniy Yatsenyuk from the largest party, Batkivshina, as the prime minister. Now, Yatsenyuk is somewhat of an expected choice, in part because of the acute lack of leadership in Ukraine right now. Among the three leaders of the opposition parties, the main opposition parties, he is the one with most political experience. Oleg Tyagnybok, leader of Svoboda, another former opposition party, is too radical to be taken by the southeast of Ukraine. And Vitaly Klitschko, the former boxer, although he might have some popular appeal because of his rags to riches story, is a fairly inexperienced and inept politician. So what we have to watch now, for one, are the steps of the new governments, what they're going to be doing up to and after the May 25th presidential elections. Now, another fairly important development over the past few days in particular is the unrest in Crimea, the peninsula in the south of Ukraine. Now, Crimea is interesting in that it has perhaps as many as 80% of the population either ethnic Russians or ethnic Ukrainians which identify themselves as Russian through linguistic and cultural ties. It also has a percentage of Crimean Tatars, about 10 to 12%, which have always been largely pro-Kiev and currently support the central authorities. These two groups have been clashing amongst each other, and clashes do continue and have escalated to the point where there might be talk of either Russian interference or secession of Crimea from the larger Ukraine, to say nothing of potential spillovers into southeastern regions.
Yes, the Crimean factor brings in Russia, and can we say now what steps Russia is likely to take now?
Russia has started conducting military exercises in the vicinity, and that has understandably raised concerns about military interference on its part. I don't think military interference is likely unless violence in Crimea were to escalate substantially from now. It wouldn't be in the character of President Putin, who has shown himself to be guided largely by pragmatic principles. And what Russia is more likely to do, I think, is to apply economic sanctions and restrictions on Ukraine, essentially doing things such as raising gas prices, imposing trade barriers, and putting other pressure on the economy of the country, which is already in quite a weak state.
Well, we're now perhaps looking forward to the medium term, and you mentioned May the 25th. So what do we think, how do you think this is going to play out in the next weeks and months?
One of the key, if not the key issue to focus on in the medium term would probably be the outlook for Ukraine's economy. Right now, it is in an extremely concerning state. We've had the new authorities say themselves that Ukraine's coffers are empty. We know that the foreign reserves are extremely low. GDP growth is in the negative territory. And Ukraine is saying that it will need as much as $35 billion of foreign aid to keep going. Now, this amount is nowhere near forthcoming either from Russia, for obvious reasons, or from the West, which has neither the willingness nor the ability to raise $35 billion. What that would mean for Ukraine is that eventually we might start seeing the collapse of the banking system. We might start seeing problems with monthly pension payments. These culminating in additional popular unrest, not only in the southeast, but possibly even in the west of Ukraine, perhaps additional violence as well. All this to say that the crisis is nowhere near over and will need to be watched very carefully going forward.
Well, we expect this events in Ukraine to keep on developing in perhaps in unexpected directions even, but you can watch this in Oxford Analytica Daily Brief output. Thank you for watching, and please tune in again next week.